For 90 years, Southern Mutual has worked with churches across the South to help them deal with the uncertainties involved in doing God's work in this complicated world. Churches are not immune from the world's evils and dangers. Sometimes the unforeseen can turn deadly. We prepared this video to help you keep your congregation safe, even under the most extreme circumstances.
Sanctuary. It's one of the first words most people associate with a church. A sanctuary is a welcoming place of refuge and safety. That's what we expect our churches to be, and with God's blessing, that's usually what they are. But churches exist in a complicated and sometimes violent world. We don't have to pay very close attention to the news to know that sometimes the most shocking violence can threaten innocent lives, even our most cherished and hallowed sanctuaries. Churches aren't fortresses, and they're not meant to be. Church leaders naturally want to keep their people as safe as possible, but they are often uncertain how to best prevent an incident or protect their members and guests in the event of an active shooter situation. And being churches, they want to know how to do so without losing the church's essential nature as a place of welcome. We hope that the information provided in this video will be a good starting point for your church to begin the process of building a solid security program. To help you lay a good foundation, Southern Mutual Church Insurance has reached out to Ariel Siegelman, founder and president of Atlanta-based Draco Group. Founded in 2006, the Draco Group team is composed of experts from military special operations and law enforcement that provide security and firearms training to small and large organizations around the world. Speaking from extensive experience, Mr. Siegelman will share with you the key principles to make your church a safer place, even under the worst of circumstances.
Where do we start? That seems to be the first question that most institutions will ask. And when we start that discussion, typically what we find is that they're thinking in terms of what do we drill into the wall? What kind of equipment should we purchase? Start with a security concept and start by understanding a methodology that makes sense. Every security program is going to be built from 3 different pillars. We call them the 3 pillars of security. There is equipment and technology, such as security cameras, that would be part of that pillar. There's protocols to make sure that that equipment and technology is actually implemented properly. And an example of poor protocols is this. You might go to a facility that has gates, and the gates are always open. Why? Because one time, the first day they put the gates in, they had them closed. And then people backed up down the street, and it was annoying and irritating, and it didn't fit with the lifestyle or culture of the institution. And so now they just keep the gates open all the time. So the gates are not serving the purpose of security that they were implemented for, but really it's just a problem of protocol. So if they knew when to close the gates and when to open the gates, then they might be able to utilize those gates for security. So protocol is the second and important pillar of security. Then there's training, and training is maybe the #1 most overlooked pillar of security in America. Too often we put emphasis on fancy equipment and cameras and laser beams and NASA-grade technology. People are sometimes willing to spend millions of dollars on security equipment and then not train on how to utilize it. You would be better off having people who are capable of noticing and asking questions and approaching someone who doesn't look right than perhaps spending the millions of dollars on the fancy equipment. It is important to remember that there is no such thing as a security camera. There are cameras. A camera is a device that takes a visual image in real time. If during real time someone is watching the camera, then that tool can be used for a security purpose because it allows you the opportunity to respond to something that you see coming toward you. However, most of the time, what people call security cameras are simply used as a tool for investigative purposes after the fact, after a crime has been committed, after an event has already occurred. Therefore, it is not a device that is being utilized for security. When seconds count, law enforcement is only minutes away. Well, I didn't make that up. Police will tell you that, and it's true. So even if the police can arrive within 10 seconds, which is highly unlikely, still you need to be able to be responsible for your own people and your own institution for that amount of time. That increment of time is what is your responsibility. That means that you need to be able to do something to protect yourself and your own people during that increment of time. Every institution should have a security team. A security team should be trained in terms of the chronology of an emergency event. An emergency event happens like this. There's before the event, there's during the event, there's after the event. Before the event means that your people know how to recognize that there's a potential problem, and hopefully they have the skills to be able to prevent that emergency from happening. It is, however, unrealistic to think that every emergency is preventable, and therefore they need to be trained to respond to emergency events. Response is a trained action. Everyone reacts when there's an emergency. Some people react appropriately, most people react poorly. Response comes from training, and hopefully that's going to be an action that is appropriate. Once the threat is over, now you're after the event. And after the event, you have to know how to stop bleeding and get people out to safety. That will save lives, before, during, and after. How do we provide an adequate medical response to make sure that we're really doing the most we can to protect human life? Many people in our society are trained and certified in CPR and first aid. But part of the problem with these sorts of situations that we're discussing, with violent attacks, is that people are not dying because of heart attacks. How many people are trained in how to stop bleeding? Loss of blood is what is killing people in violent events. We have to have the right equipment to stop bleeding, and we have to have the right training to stop bleeding. The equipment should be beyond the standard first aid kit. An aspirin and a Band-Aid are not going to save lives, but a tourniquet and a pressure bandage very well may. Those should be in your kit. Your people should also be trained in how to put on a tourniquet and how to put on a pressure bandage. They should also be trained in how to recognize what kind of wound needs what kind of treatment. These are all simple things to train, but they are often overlooked. There's no option in an emergency situation of doing nothing. Either you need to defensively respond or offensively respond. Most people will defend and be in the defensive posture. So if you're an individual who is defensively responding, it comes down to two questions. You need to ask yourself, is it more dangerous in here or is it more dangerous out there? If it's more dangerous in here, I need to evacuate. If it's more dangerous out there, I need to shelter. That's it. The offensive response is about moving toward the threat in order to delay the threat, stop the threat, and neutralize the threat. The faster that threat is neutralized, or at least stopped, the more life will be saved. Some people have heard the concept rings of security or layers of security. What that simply means is that you are implementing a model that has different layers, that if the threat is coming from outside toward you and your people, that it has to pass through different layers or different rings and will hopefully be stopped or will be seen before it gets to you. If it gets seen, obviously, that allows you the opportunity to respond defensively and or offensively, which allows you to save life. The first ring of security we call me and us, because it's about me knowing that I have a responsibility for my community and for the people around me to take care of them. The more training and knowledge that we attain, the more powerful that ring of security is. The next ring of security is what we call the proximal zone. There may be 1,000 things that you can do within the sanctuary itself or within the area that is immediately around you. Outside of the proximal zone is the inner zone. That would include the inside of your building. There are many things that you can implement inside of your building that can allow you advance notice of something happening. Outside of the inner zone is the outer zone. There are things that you should think about implementing in the parking lot or in the field next to your institution if you have one. Some institutions don't have a field or a parking lot at all. You might be adjacent to a street, but it's important at least to understand that your building doesn't have a very wide outer zone. And outside of the outer zone is your community. The community is a very valuable asset for your security program. If you have a good relationship with your community, then if the community members outside on the street see something happening or see somebody coming toward you, they'll probably come and help. Beyond the community, we have what we call first responders. All these different layers of security are opportunities for you to keep a threat at a distance and gain time so that you can respond, and so that first responders can get to you before the threat does. Certainly churches want to have an open and welcoming environment. And one of the fears about security is that security is equated with discomfort or rude or somehow getting in the way of life, restricting life. Security shouldn't be seen as a restriction of life. It should be built in a way that enhances life. If you have good protocols, then the security that is implemented within your institution will be something that fits with the lifestyle, that adds to the lifestyle, and that rather than people being rude to each other in order to have security, they can simply say, "Hi, I have never met you before. Can I help you? Can I show you the front office? Have you checked in? Have you met this person?" Just by approaching someone and being kind and polite to them, I'm enhancing my security. Many people feel like they're just ordinary people. How could they possibly do something in the face of a violent threat to make a difference? And the answer is, you can. Everyone can make a difference. Everyone can learn something that can make a difference and save a life. It is not an easy topic to discuss. It's not an easy topic to think about. However, by us being willing to think about it and discuss it and train for these things that are not comfortable, we greatly reduce the chance of these things happening. And it is our responsibility to do everything in our power to prevent these type of events. In this video, we've discussed many different concepts and an overarching view of security. The bottom line is that it is important to recognize that the number one most valuable asset in your community is you and the people around you. The human element is often overlooked, but it's the most valuable element. The more trained we are, the safer we are, wherever we are.
An attack on your church and its members is not a pleasant thing to talk about, but it can happen. And the best way to minimize the danger is to be prepared before it happens and know what to do if it does. For more information, please visit our website at smcins.com. We're here to help.